The perfect timeline for your Indian wedding in Italy. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Svetlana from Best Indian Weddings Italy, the first and only wedding planning agency in Italy specialized in Indian weddings. Every day I help Indian brides and grooms-to-be realize their authentic Indian celebrations in the most beautiful country in the world. I'm running this series of videos called the SOS Indian Weddings in Italy with useful tips and advice that you won't find anywhere else. So, if you are looking to host your Indian wedding in Italy, then please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell to always keep updated with the new videos every week. The topic of this week is the perfect timeline for your Indian wedding in Italy. As we know, Indian weddings are very elaborate and unique. The typical wedding day usually consists of the wedding ceremony in the morning, followed by lunch, and then the wedding reception in the evening. Some couples also add the civil wedding on the same day, and then they struggle because there may be some delays. And they end up running around to make sure that everything runs on schedule. For this reason, it's crucial to perfectly calculate the timeline for your events, where all the important aspects are taken into account. But how to do that? How to perfectly calculate the timings? We have already said that the main events of the wedding days are the religious ceremony with the lunch and the wedding reception. So grab a paper and a pen and write them down, because everything revolves around those two main events, to which you then add and calibrate all the other moments and events. The first parameter to start with is the time of the venue rental. Even if it's a venue with accommodation on site where you and your guests are staying, so you don't need to arrive at a specific time, they may give you a starting time anyway and specific times to use the spaces for your celebrations. Therefore, make sure you agree on that with the venue in advance. Same goes for your wedding reception, because you need to understand how many hours are included in the price and then decide if those included hours are enough for your reception or if you want to add extra hours by paying an extra fee, for example. I suggest you start with the reception. Even if it's the last event, it's the one that affects the whole timing the most, because the majority of food providers usually put a specific number of hours of service included in the contract. Usually they include 6 to 7 hours of service, and some of them even put down a specific timing for the start and the end of the reception. So let's say from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. So make sure you verify this aspect with both the venue and the food provider beforehand, so that you know how much time you have included for your reception. But before you go into the specifics of each event, the very first thing to do is to create a list of more generic timings, and after that you can dive in the details of each event. So to start, you can write down reception from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. with 7 hours of service included. Of course, if it were 6 hours, then you need to understand what time to start and what time to finish, because the venue might tell you you have to finish by midnight or by 1 a.m., even if the catering company gives you a 7 hours of service. It's crucial to understand until what time you can stay at the venue and verify if there is a chance to stay past that time. If the contract states a fee for each extra hour, and if there is a time limit, everything must line up. Now let's move on to the wedding ceremony. It's important that you consult the priest, because some may give you very specific timings, while others may be more flexible and may tell you that any time would work as long as the ceremony ends by midday, for example. So it's important that you verify this aspect in advance. Now let's assume that the ceremony would start at 10 a.m. That means that the ceremony itself must start at that time and not the whole event, because let's not forget that there is the Barat, meaning the guests need time to take their seats, so you should consider all that before the ceremony starts. So if the ceremony itself starts at 10 a.m., put down 9 a.m. as the start of the events, so that you have enough time for the Barat, for the two families to meet, and for everyone to take a seat and be ready for the ceremony starting at 10 a.m. The length of the ceremony mostly depends on the celebrant. I have taken part at a Hindu ceremony which lasted more than 2 hours, but let's say that the average length of a ceremony is of 1 hour. Of course, that needs to be discussed with the priest beforehand, especially to understand when exactly to start the ceremony and calculate its length. And don't forget about the group pictures after. So, if we consider 1 hour for the Barat, the meeting of two families, and the guests to arrive at the ceremony place, then 1 hour for the ceremony itself, and half an hour for the group pictures after the ceremony. This way, if you start at 9 a.m., you'll be done by 11:30 a.m. Of course, always calculate a little bit of delay, around half an hour and sometimes even more. For this reason, I made a video about how to avoid the delays at your Indian wedding in Italy that I suggest watching. After that, there is the wedding lunch, which could start directly at 11:30 a.m. or at noon. That also depends on how many guests are there for the group photos, because sometimes half an hour may not be enough. Or maybe you want a short break for your guests, to freshen up, to stretch their legs, or to use the restroom, for example. Anyway, it's always recommended to have someone coordinating on site so that you won't have major delays. The lunch after the ceremony is usually a buffet which doesn't last too long. So if it starts by 11:45-12, then it finished at around 1:30 p.m. The couple may take advantage of this time to do their private photo shoot while everyone is busy with the lunch. And that's not all. Don't forget that then there is Vidai and sometimes also Coda games. And if you rented a car for the Vidai, it's important to verify the timing with the renting company, especially if you used the car also for your Barat, because sometimes renting companies have very strict timing schedule as they may have other weddings to go to. So, considering another half an hour for Vidai and the games, the whole ceremony event must finish at around 2:30 p.m. Then your guests will leave. Both the bride and groom will have to change their outfits, and the bride will also need to change her look, which would take from 2 to 3 hours. If the cocktail hour would start at 6 p.m., then it would leave you more than 3 hours to change your looks. While your guests enjoy the cocktail hour, that's the best time for the couple's photoshoot. Don't consider this time as the getting ready time, but consider to be ready so that you would have time for your photos before heading to the party. Now let's move on to the wedding reception. It starts with the cocktail hour, which usually lasts for 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. And then there is the newlyweds' grand entrance and the cutting of the cake. After that, we arrive to the seated part of the dinner. Consider that the gap between the dishes depends on your menu and on the cooking time of each specific dish. It's important to verify that with your catering company in advance to understand their timings. Another important thing to discuss with your caterer regards the speeches, how many and how long they will take. The seated part of the dinner, including the speeches, should take around 2 hours. Don't forget that people often dance in between of each course, So you need to consider at least half an hour for that as well. Then it's important to understand if you have to finish by midnight because of the music limitations or if you can party longer. I suggest you calculate at least 2 hours for the dance party before the end of your reception, and based on that you can calculate the dinner service as well. So if you have to finish by midnight, it means that the dance party should start at 10 p.m. And if from your calculations the dinner would finish later than this time, that it means you have to recalculate better all your timings, especially if you then will have taxis or coaches booked for your guests and you can't go any later. As you can see, the timeline is essential. There are so many things to take into account, and it's important to make all these calculations beforehand. Speak with the caterer, with the venue, with the people who will make speeches, with the celebrant. Only this way you'll be able to put together all the info you need, create a thorough timeline, and avoid not having enough time, which would bring to delays. In our precious and unique digital program for do-it-yourself Indian couples who want to plan their own wedding in Italy, we have a full chapter dedicated to the planning of the wedding, with already made timelines with all the events, things to check and notes that you would only need to fill in with the timings. If you are interested in, there is a link in the description. That's all for today. Thank you for watching this video that I hope can truly help you with planning your beautiful Indian wedding in Italy. If you haven't done it yet, subscribe to my channel, follow Best Indian Weddings Italy on Facebook and Instagram, comment in the post, and I will be happy to answer. See you next week!